Okay, it's been a little while. So we've been on hiatus. Will and I have been in what you say like product launch mode. We're launched our first product the last couple months. So we are back with HR and other tomfoolery, and we are excited to welcome Marilyn Whitty to the podcast today. She's going to be sharing a little bit about her work in the people space, and we're going to have a fun conversation. So, Marilyn is a career wellness expert. She's the founder of Vitality with Marilyn, and she is a certified career wellness expert with over 20 years as an HR professional and 8 years in leadership. She helps leaders and professionals take control of their wellness and build the stamina and clarity needed to excel in their careers without sacrificing their well being. Her expertise is deeply personal, based on her own journey of losing 90 pounds, overcoming chronic pain and migraines, and finding solutions to persistent gut health issues. So, through that journey, she discovered wellness isn't just about health, it's about a sustainable career growth and leadership excellence. And then, after seeing the impact of that and prioritizing movement, well being of her own, she developed the Career Wellness Framework designed to help busy professionals create sustainable habits that support both their personal well being and career growth. So, Marilyn, tell us about who you work with and how this journey's been going for
Thank
you so
you.
far.
Well, thank you for having me here. It's exciting. We've had some really great conversations so far, so I know this is going to be good.
Yes.
So so thank you for the introduction. So yeah, I'm an HR professional by trade or my history, and I still very much work in this space, and that gave me the opportunity to work with a lot of people in general, but a lot of people in leadership. So. The people that I work with in my private practice and in my career wellness coaching and consulting, it's primarily people in leadership positions who, like you mentioned, like kind of struggle to harmonize their wellness while following their career path. There's a lot of pressures that comes with being a career-driven professional, and I'm the living
Yeah.
proof of that. And I am going through my own journey. So that started about 4 years ago now, and being able to maintain and continuously prioritize that. I feel compelled to help others, to support others the way that I've been supported by experts throughout. So I've definitely um, dedicated a lot of time, energy to do that. It's becoming kind of a mandate of mine. It's almost like a blind spot that leaders have when it comes to themselves. They're so busy, preoccupied with other things that
Yeah.
sometimes we forget that our own wellness is actually our key to our success.
Yes. It's a lot of parallels, being a leader and being a parent, even, and like trying to care for everybody else first and foremost. And
For
you
sure.
sacrifice usually yourself in the process. And it's, the age old adage, it's hard to pour from an empty bucket. So,
Yeah, well, parenting is leadership, right?
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
leadership.
it is.
And sometimes people don't associate with like either saying, "Oh, I don't know if I'm your niche clientele. Like I'm not yet. Like I'm aspiring to be in a leadership position, or I do these kinds of things." But it's really people that are driven and that take that leadership role within the community, with a lot within the career, but it's also at
Yeah.
home aspect of the life that applies for sure. It's that aspect of you're you're fueled and you're focused on other things, and then you kind of either wake up or you get those moments. I'm like, I'm not where I want to be health
Yeah.
wise. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I haven't heard people talk about, parents being leaders very often, but I also agree with that. And almost like I feel like it's almost harder because they're like little tyrants running around, and they don't listen to you and have really bad behavior. So it's like, those HR problem people, except they fill your household and you can't rationalize with them. So it
Yep.
requires even
Absolutely.
more leadership skills and more
Yeah, I
energy.
feel like being a parent teaches you a lot about being a
Yeah.
leader because A lot of people kind of like, overcomplicate being a leader, where it is very much just like resonating with who you're trying to lead and taking them through steps, by baby steps, pun intended, where it's like if you break things down in the most simplistic forms, then number one, you're providing a lot of clarity in your communication so that there's no question about, what you're asking or what the directive is, so that people can, follow that a lot easier. So I kind of relate it to, parenting teaches you a lot about how to lead adults.
Absolutely, absolutely. And having kids of my own, and now going into teenage years, for sure, it's and people in leadership position often have kids, but it's an interesting one because you will pour yourself and ensure their well-being, but then it's kind of like taking a moment saying, okay, I know I value wellness. I know I value like and it's very important and I know that security and all that. And it's like, how is it so hard for me to implement those little changes that could be very meaningful for my own, right? So it's
Yeah.
And that's part of the soft skills. The soft skills that parenting provides you for leadership is like setting an example, right? As a
yeah,
leader in an organization, it's always talked about how culture comes top down. It lives with the employees, but it's set by the leaders. And that's very much, if you want to be intentional with your culture and your expectations, then it's very much leading by example. Because you can talk all day about what the expectations are and set policies and procedures and have fun events and do all these things. But at the end of the day, your employees they know how you act and they're going to do the same things because they know what they can get away with. Very similar to parenting. So,
yeah.
yeah, that also teaches you a lot of those soft skills and patience, right?
Mhm.
You just have to have a lot of patience, which, you can develop at home. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And even for yourselves, I think we think about patience towards others, but I feel like most of us are the least patience towards ourselves
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
and
that's the
tolerant to
truth.
mistakes. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been having my firsthand practice in that all summer because I had shared, we haven't had consistent childcare, but the work hasn't stopped, so having to deal with the frustration of feeling like I'm not being a great hands-on parent and also not being a great hands-on leader and getting stuff done the way I'd like to and beating myself up internally and just realizing like that's not helping.
Yeah.
It just
I
builds that anxiety and that frustration, and then when I do have time to work I'm just like frazzled. So
Yeah, but what you're describing it is what most people in leadership feel. They're never good enough. They could
right.
always do more. They're always pulled in different direction for priorities that are set from like the top down to their employees' need to their own deliverables to their
Yes.
responsibilities at home that may have taken them away from being able to attend a meeting that was perceived as important. Like it's always that tug and pull. I've never met a leader who's like, I feel like I am on top of my game all the time. I feel good. I'm
Crushing this.
happy, crushing this. And it's
Yeah.
unfortunate because I feel like we're now faced with kind of a shift where people are shying away from leadership positions because like it
It's an
doesn't
added headache. Yeah,
yeah,
it
it
doesn't
doesn't
look
look
as
all that
stress.
enticing, right? And there's a
Yeah.
shift in generations as well too about what people are looking for and some great leadership potential that are just choosing to not,
Yes.
don't blame them. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think in general, like workers have so much more demanded of them. The expectation is that we do more, we do more, we do more with the same amount of time. And so, like you said, when we don't take care of ourselves, that leads to burnout. And what we've seen is that burnout right now is at an all-time high. So about 66% of employees report feeling completely burned out. Um, and Gallup estimates that the disengaged burnout workers cost the world $8.9 trillion in lost productivity, which is exactly how I feel. And like I mentioned, right, when I do finally get a moment to work, I'm so frazzled and disoriented and tired and, from all of that, that I'm not being effective. So
Yeah.
do you feel like leaders are basically, burning money by pushing people past their limits? And how would you convince, a hard driving CEO or leader of other leaders and employees that well being is not just something fluffy, feel good, but an actual driver of performance and bottom line.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll go back to what we were saying before, right? Like people in leadership are themselves on this kind of hamster wheel of trying to catch up or do things, and they're in the positions they are. Like the question is, how I would approach the
Best
topic
leaders,
with a
yeah.
CEO, and a CEO's got either stakeholders or board of directors. They've got pressures to perform. And typically the type of person who chooses leadership as a path, they're very driven, for whatever reason, either purpose or they are very much pouring themselves into the work. And what that means is that they themselves have chosen that, and it's
Mm-hmm.
hard, and they're so busy for them to take a pause and self-reflect on themselves as a role model and all this. So all these things we've already talked about. So for me, my first question is for them to kind of, I would suggest that they take a bit of a pause. We'd look at what their organizational vision, goals, or strategies. If wellness is on there, what does that mean to them, and what does that like vision mean? Because I'm guaranteed that no CEO, no leadership team want people to be sick, and they don't want to push people to the brink of burnout. They don't know any better. They have
Mm-hmm.
come into this work and they've worked for 20, 15, 20 plus years in a certain way, where it's like you show up, you do the work, you show up, you give more. And unfortunately, that has created some sort of culture that we're now seeing of we and now we need to do less with more with less, sorry, because
Yeah.
of economical pressures and all that. So it's trying to synthesize all of the competing pressures and prioritizing what it is. Because at the bottom line, you humans, your people they have to be at the number one. If you're peeling off like their current way of behaving or going about their day, they'll often see that the pressures to perform as outweighed that inadvertently without being conscious. So what I would do with them is I would try to bring some awareness, some gentle ways, and trying to be also very empathetic to their situation and how they are experiencing their work, because I can pretty much guarantee that they're also struggling. So if they're struggling, then their only way of functioning that they know, their default mode, their brain's like, you just keep going. This place needs to do better. We just work harder.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the danger. Burnout, until you've experienced it, it's hard to seize. And about that comment about how do we convince them it's not fluff? Well, a lot of them, I mean, they're smart people in these positions. You don't become a CEO rolling out of your bed in college, right? And they're dedicated. So usually the statistics will help, but it's also kind of that human touch of kind of taking a step back, looking at the data, like what are your employees telling you? And I want
Mhm.
to say burnout often is, so we say is about staff or like employees are doing more. But something that Will said earlier is rings true here is setting the expectations. More often than not, employees, especially middle management supervisors, are unsure of the expectations of their job, which then makes them fill in the gap. So they look at their supervisor, they're like, okay, I'm assuming my expectation is for me to work extra hours like they do, just roll with it or whatever. So all they can do is explore their environment and say, these people are doing well, this must be the expectation. So in
Right.
absence of being clear, that's what happens. And like there's one of my former colleagues that always stuck with me. It's like it's not kind to not be clear. And sometimes
Yeah.
leaders think that giving flexibility and the free reign to build their schedule is what's kind, or what's, going to be good with people who like that. But it can be anxiety inducing and can make them do work that is not required. And then sometimes there's strategies about fostering teamwork, like, and really taking like a non-judgmental approach to saying who's strong at what and how do we collaborate, because some of the work that's going to be heavy and hard for me is not going to be for you. So how
Right.
do we
Fire out
distribute
in
the
five
work?
minutes. Yeah.
Exactly. And always keeping in mind, do I have the right structure organizationally to deliver on the work? And how have things changed? Because job descriptions can't stay static. Job evolves because humans are not, we're not programmable. Everybody's
Yeah.
is a bit different. So it's kind of a long-winded answer to this, but definitely taking a look, helping that CEO to have a bit of self-awareness and review kind of the temperature of their organization.
Yeah, no, and I hear you talking through like tactical elements, right? That wellness is not just um, the individual or, kind of maybe the very surface level way that we define it culturally. It's creating environments where people can be well, so like we always talk about operationalizing culture, which culture also is one of those words that feels kind of nebulous, right? Like an abstract, like what is culture, like it feels fluffy, but it's like, no, these are tangible things that if you define how you want people to behave and you define what your expectations are and how they interact and how we
Mhm.
treat customers and how we deliver work, right? Like it becomes something that you can build into processes and make very clear and very tangible. And I hear you saying things like that, right? Like doing strength-based coaching, doing leadership development, setting better expectations for themselves, for others, leading by example. Like there are very tangible, holistic ways to approach that beyond what we see as, kind of the surface level wellness,
Mhm. Totally.
which leads me to that, that my next question, which is um, a large majority of companies offer quote unquote wellness programs. In
Yeah.
fact, probably about 85% of the large corporations offer wellness programs, and the spending has hit over 94 billion as projected by the end of this year. So why are we having these challenges if we're spending so much on wellness and we are also seeing the most burnout, the most mental health struggles? It's continuing to escalate. Where are companies missing the mark? And how do we dig deeper here to start affecting change?
Yeah. Seems it should be better, right? The positive in those statistics is that if money's invested, it's because people are aware that it's important, right? And we've recognized whether or it's costing money for employees to leave organization. It costs a lot of money for people to have employees that are unwell, that needs to take leave, and so on. What that tells me, and wellness programs are good, but they don't attack the root cause. So if the root cause goes back to kind of some of the themes we've already discussed of being in that space where we just got to make it work, and day in day out you come in with maybe a bit of lack of direction and clarity and kind of lack of strategy overall to build in kind of these workflows and processes that can ease the pressure on multiple level. If you're not aware of the root cause, then again, so it's better that those wellness programs are in place than none, but clearly they're not effective at dealing with the root cause. So
Right.
it's the equivalent as in health and safety, you're like right now it's not preventative, it's reactive, so we're trying to correct. There's a large investment in wellness programs because often it goes with benefits programs, so health and dental and all of the paramedical and everything insurance can provide. And there's always a debate of, do we promote this? Because the more people use them, the more the premiums go up. So money always speaks in that realm. But realistically, that whole review of what's our priority, if our people's health is at number one, that drives all that we do. That
Yeah.
drives how we assign work. That drives what mandate we will take on. That will drive how we promote our health benefits as a pro, not like, well, just use them, but use them only if you need them, because then it costs the company, right? So
Right.
it changes the language of how we deliver the wellness programs. The intentionality behind wellness programs is very important. It's not just like, because it's often used as an attraction tool, like, oh, we have all these benefits and employee assistance program, and you
Right.
get this. But then if the employee feels bad using them, using their leave, using all of that, then you're missing the mark. So again, it goes back to like really a good wellness program needs to be put in place after a thorough review of the culture and of really what the root causes are of the burnout, the all the things that are making employees unwell. And not many management team are aware that that work needs to be done. So these are blind spots. You don't know
Right.
them until you dig deep, and that's why you need to be accompanied through that. And it also doesn't feel great to see that you've had these misses that have had really big repercussions. So it also needs a very healthy management team to be willing to go there, to be
Right.
vulnerable enough to open up kind of what is really going on to be able to address that. And it's a long-term kind of process. It's a constant dedication, just like our own personal wellness. Organizational wellness is a big commitment. And I cringe when I see it sometimes as like, it seems to be trendy to say, oh, we have all these employee wellness is on our strategic plan and this is our main. But I was like, okay, but what does that mean for the organization? I think it's well intentioned. I think
It
all of
is.
it is well intentioned.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's well intentioned. I think it's just that people are so busy. It's almost like throwing money at the problem, or like throwing something at the wall
Yeah.
and seeing what sticks. And so, like, okay, we'll invest in this. We have these great resources for our people, but people don't know how to use the resources. They don't fully know what exists for them. They don't have time to leverage it, right? Um, it's
And
not built in as a priority for the organization. And so it's kind of like, that next layer down, that next step has to be taken to build it into intentionally like how you live day to day, week to week. The same way we talk about like when you define culture is we're ethical, we are customer service oriented. It's like, great. Now, what do you do with that? It's very vague,
yeah,
right? At least that's sort of it, but like you got to take it a next layer down and next layer down. And I think it's a lot of like little changes, right? Little fixes, little
yeah,
adjustments as you go, like you said. So sustainable habits. Um, I use the analogy a lot of like rowing a boat, like especially the bigger the organization, the more like little movements it takes to kind of start to shift things and a lot of consistent work.
I agree.
Um, there's no like one easy fix or quick solve. But like you said, even like putting parameters in place if you have an unlimited vacation policy. Maybe a great idea in theory, but people feel uncomfortable taking it. How do you take it that next step of saying you're mandated to take at least 2 weeks per year, right? Like you are required to use it by the end of the year, right? Like, or as a team, we're going to spend this amount of time each week um, leveraging our wellness services, right? Like this is going to be the time for everybody to step away and take 30 minutes, to do whatever they need, have access. Like, how do you build those habits in? Um, and
Yeah.
again, it's kind of hard because all those things continue to fall on leaders.
Leaders, yeah. And I'll say too, like, one thing that came to mind, because to go back to the initial topic of why do these programs fail, it's often it's not what the employees need at that moment. So
Sure.
if you have an organization where a company or business that the structure is all wrong and that you have bottlenecks at different places in the and like there's a lot of pressure on those employees, you can have yoga, you can have benefits, you can have all of that, but I mean the pressure is not going to be removed, right? So it's at the essence the work, the wellness program idea, it needs to be there, but what's within that bucket, then that's to be determined. And there's a lot of things that, it's not that you wait until you figure everything out that's going on, but there's some things that clearly you can always do. You can always encourage. It's a lot about the communication that leadership has. It's that warmth of
Right.
of encouraging people to take their vacation, encouraging them to take their breaks, encouraging them to talk to their manager if they're having any issues. It's leaders developing those strong relationship and checking in with their leader, their each individual employees to make sure they're doing well and getting a pulse on things. So it starts there. It's all the communication and relationship, so that you're building those mechanism to have the information flow. Where
Yeah,
sometimes,
those feedback loops.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, hybrid work. I keep getting this question like, are, you know, are people really wanting to go back full time? Is that just what companies are saying? Like what's the deal, Alex? Like the landscape. And some of the stats out right now is that 80% of HR execs say that hybrid arrangements are exhausting employees. So I think the element of like Zooms, having the app like Teams or Slack on our phones and constant pings, having people having access to us at all times, trying to juggle home life, office life, commute, not commute, shifting schedules, right? People are having trouble navigating some of that maybe. Do you feel like that is contributing to burnout right now? Or people are missing the mark on that too, or miscategorizing it? Like, what are you seeing? Um, what are you seeing right now and hearing from burnout professionals that you work with trying to navigate the job landscape?
It's interesting because you're approaching this and saying that there's comment from HR saying that it's experiencing burnout for the employees, but my sense is it's very hard for leaders. First and foremost, having people in the office, not in office, how you adapt your leadership and your expectations in and out is very challenging. And if we take a step back on how this came about, right? So we had a predominantly in office workforce. um, Most organization were managing by like, you start at that time, you end at that time. COVID came and shook everything up, and then the remote environment brought a lot of flexibility and opportunities as well. And from my understanding, employees very much appreciate it, and I feel like hybrid is a lot more beneficial for an employee than the leader, because
Mm-hmm.
coordination, like they don't have much, like they feel like they're out of time to do their regular work, yet let alone coordinating, making sure the right people are in the office at the right time and ensuring their presence when key players are there, because otherwise a hybrid environment is just people in Zoom calls sitting in an office if you're not making it meaningful. So the connection, like the human factors of the benefits of going in an office is kind of lost if you're not intentional about
Right.
how you manage a team, right?
Right.
So the I would have said, your comments of saying like always being on, that was definitely a transition during when workforce was predominantly remote. That was true. Like, there wasn't that division of home and work. And like there wasn't that clear cut, and then always having feeling like they needed to be connected. I feel like we've turned a page, and like, because now world is a bit different. And at that time too, we had very limited social interaction options, and depending where you lived in the world, some places were more strict than others in terms of your capacity to even leave your home. So it was a very hard time mentally. Like, human beings need
Yeah.
connection, human interaction from all level. So the hybrid model into the workforce brings its challenges. It brings opportunities as well. I think it is very well received by employees generally, as long as expectations again are clear, as long as it's as there's been a shift in the leadership that goes from managing for hours versus into outcomes. So
Yeah.
if you're feeling stressed that you have to be in front of your screen, ins and outs and so on, but if your leader style, or the management style is really like, this is when this needs to be delivered. there's some flexibility, then it can be very beneficial for an employee. They can do a workout during the day, they can take a walk, they can pick up their kids if they need to. If they get
Right.
that flexibility from it and that trust that they will deliver, then that makes all the difference. So I think that's where the key is what is the organization willing to let go? Because we all know as HR professionals that it's not because somebody's sitting 8 hours in an office that they're actually productive.
Working for 8 hours.
And we know from a neuroscience perspective that you can't do deep work for more than 4 to 6 hours. So
Right, right.
there's got to be some flexible kind of thinking here as opposed to the rigid kind of you got to be there. Now, different areas of work is different, like, healthcare or shift work and all that, you need to be there. And if you're not there, then there's repercussions. But for most of us in office, the shift and the comfort of letting go of the reins a little bit when it comes to hours, then that's
Mhm.
where I think the huge benefits for both the manager take some pressures off and then the employee. But then you got to check in with your staff. You got to have that relationship. You got to have the expectation set because it can't be completely loose because then that has downside effects in terms of productivity, but also it creates stress for the employees. Everybody typically, like, sorry, I should say the majority of people want to do well in their job. They
I say
want
that
to.
all the time. Yes. Most people want to do a good job.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was
No,
just
no, no, and I
affirming, like, yes,
yeah,
they do.
yeah. So, if that's the case, then hybrid work arrangement can be fantastic. Fully remote can be fantastic. It's just
Yeah.
about how you approach it. And I feel like it may be a very shallow kind of assessment of, oh, this is what's driving burnout. I don't think that's
Yeah.
what's driving burnout. I think it's the culture of trust and communication and setting expectations and all that. Because I think you can have a very healthy culture and workforce fully remote, hybrid, or in office for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, our own internal company structure is, how can we um do more with less, right? Like, so how do people, we're entirely remote and we try to offer people the flexibility of saying, like, create the life you want, get our goal is to create full-time pay for part-time hours, right? Like, because we're being efficient. Like, how do you help people be efficient with their time so they have time to do other things that keep them well,
Mhm.
and create that balance? So,
Yeah, and we know like the research is there. If people are having time to be healthy, they're more productive with their time. So whether you have a person working, you're staring at their screen for 8 hours versus 6 or even 4, but doing better work, like somebody taking a walk in the middle of their day will have a lot more ideas, will be more apt to problem solve.
right,
Innovation is triggered, all kind of great things. So why not promote that? Because it's to the benefit of the organization, to everybody.
100%. I was thinking the other day, like, the only time that I seem to have time, because, as soon as I go down, whether it's for a bathroom break, a coffee break, any break, or done my work day, I'm tackled by three kids and it's like from one crazy to the next crazy, and like the only alone time I have is in the shower.
Yeah.
All these ideas start coming in. I'm like, oh, how nice to have just like a moment of quiet. And then my brain starts to naturally ideate,
Yeah, well,
and
yeah, that's the basis of it. You give your body what it needs, which is the very basic needs from the Maslow hierarchy of needs, which is ancient. You need to move your body, you need to fuel it, you need to rest, and you need to breathe. Very
yeah,
basic. But those are the things we forget or we put aside as soon as life gets in the way. There, all of these things, and it sounds silly for breathing, but we will breathe shallow when we're stressed. So deep rest is a huge thing. Making sure you have your
yeah,
rest, fueling your body with nutritious food and movement. I mean, that's my secret sauce for everything I do with the work is getting people to move because there's nothing more powerful and more simple than moving your body for mental health, for physical health, for career, for anything.
yes. I'm a mover myself, so I concur with that selfishly. I like that answer.
As long as
um,
you're doing
it's
everybody a favor by moving.
yes. So that's a perfect segue to my last kind of question today, to leave something tangible for our listeners. We always like to leave something that they can just quickly take away and implement. And your career wellness framework, I love. It aligns so nicely with the type of work and values that we have. You know, you're emphasizing sustainable, personalized change, not quick fixes, not blanket solutions, but essentially helping people harmonize career and well-being through, you know, little changes, little habit changes and things over time. So could you give us a taste of like how that works? Is there a quick interactive exercise? Is there, one honest question that you'd prompt our listeners to ask themselves as a mini career wellness audit? Take us through something that you think would be valuable.
Yes. Well, first and foremost, like we've talked about the framework, and listeners are maybe like, okay, what's this framework? It's quite simple. Three step. The first one is movement. If you are not moving, and I'm not talking about huge strength training. I'm not talking about running. I'm talking about moving your body. First and foremost, walking is like the most bang for your buck time you're going to invest in yourself. Like the return on investment, like you may think you have no time, but you don't have time to not walk because the benefit to your body, your mind, everything, it can't be compared. So
Yeah.
first is the movement, and for sure that's completely scalable. If you do walk, then strength training is does wonders for your body, for longevity, for your joints, everything. You know, we're not created to sit down in front
Persist.
of a desk for these long periods of time. So that's really the first one. And yeah, it can get complicated. The whole healthy eating, sleeping, everything. But what I say, start with movement. You need movement, and that's the simplest thing. And you need very little of equipment, anything. So you don't need to learn how to do it. You know how to walk. So if you don't walk regularly, that's the first thing. My second step in the framework, I call it motivation, but it's really about self-awareness, and it's kind of like what I was saying about the leaders. It's about self-awareness of yourself and getting to know yourself in a kind, compassionate way. To say
Yeah.
it's not about learning all your strengths and weaknesses. It's like what drives you and why it's motivation. Because I became extremely like passion, like really fascinated with motivation, right? What kicks
Yeah.
you into gear? And through some coaching that I've received, I was fortunate to use it to get a tool called motivational maps, and that helps you. It's just a questionnaire, like mini assessments, and then it gives you right in front of you what drives you, what are your main motivators at this moment in time, which can
Yeah.
change given your circumstances, but it helps you understand so that any kind of self-awareness, which often is helpful to lean on experts and because you can't see your blind spots that you don't
Right.
see, right? So while you're getting that learning and you're moving consistently, then you're learning and then you can build the plan that's going to be working for you. And you can also build in the learning and the thinking loops that you're likely going to make mistakes and not achieve your goals. You have to try and error, and you're building tolerance to those. So you're setting yourself up for success because even though if I tell you what meal plan to eat, what exercise regimen to do, how much water to drink, all of this you can find online. The real question is why aren't we doing it? Why
Mm-hmm.
are we not, feeling compelled to do these things that we know are important for us until we get scared, until we are sick, someone else is sick, or there's a real
Right.
reason. So really that whole inner work is really it's a pause and it's a review, and then you build your plan, and then you build in some structure, some process, and accountability. So people that know some support. So people in leadership position, they are busy, not just from a time perspective, but their attention is on a lot of things. You
Right.
cannot concentrate on everything. As you do at work, you need to delegate certain things, and you need to have reasonable expectations of yourself. You can't know everything about the human body. People go to school for years and years and years to understand nutrition, the human kinetics and everything that's
Yeah.
involved. So investing in your physical being or your mental health as well is not selfish. It's a must. Every one of us needs to invest. So go and get that support, and that's building that plan. So that third pillar, I kind of didn't name it, but it's executing that plan, constantly tweaking it and checking in with your expert. And you will get it right. There's no reason why anybody cannot have the successes I had, or that anyone else who turns their life around, loses the weight, gets more energized. And you also have to understand that things are going to happen in life. You're likely going to have to take a step back. And human beings, we don't like regressing, but it's like if you expect it, things are going to happen. You know how to get this done. You've done it before. You get back on it, and it's like building kind of that wellness maintenance. And it's key because people need like need to believe that it's possible, and need to
Right.
consistently be fueled and reminded of what they do. So 3 steps, you move, you figure out your motivation, and you plan and execute. And yeah, and the one key question that I'd ask people is like, everybody knows that wellness is important. Is like really understanding, like, what's keeping you away from starting. So what's the one thing that keeps you from adding movement in a day? And why I
Yeah.
always start with movement. You move, you feel better, and it's easier to make good decisions or healthy decisions when you feel good. So you've had those endorphins and dopamine, you feel better, you've gotten a small success, which automatically in your brain it feels good. So therefore now you're better set up to make the food choices that are good for you, and
Yeah.
the career choices that
It all
are gonna help
compounds.
you. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talk about that with job seekers. We have them kind of write out like um an affirmation document, a commitment document of, this is why I'm doing it. Because we know that when you tie it to something that is like a visceral experience for you or an emotional attachment, um, you're much more likely to achieve it. So like, what is motivating you to make this change, right? How's it going to impact your life? Why does it matter? Like you said, doing some of that self exploration can sometimes make or break whether we actually make the behavior change.
Yeah, and people in a job search, and I know we haven't specifically spoken to the listeners that are in that difficult situation, is realizing, you this is hard, being in job search, it weighs heavily on you. So your expectations of how, if you want to lose weight and do other things or whatever your wellness goals, they have to be aligned with the fact that you have things going on. But that doesn't mean you wait to start. That doesn't mean you can't, you carve out what you feel you can do, and you can definitely and like introduce walking and some basic exercising and stuff in your day, because that's going to help you. So it's not taken away. It's actually going to add your focus. And before an interview, there's so much to be said about movement and a good
Yeah,
rest, obviously.
I love that. We're definitely going to have you back to talk to our community for our Career Catalyst program, because there's a whole other segment that I'd love to tap into is, how people in the job search kind of treat themselves and set themselves up for
Yeah.
success. So this has been an awesome conversation. We really appreciate your time. Will, I don't know if you want to wrap us up. You got anything else to say?
No, you kind of answered my question, Marilyn, with your last comments about where to start and 3 easy things to do, because I was really impressed. You said you lost 90 pounds. And so I was kind of curious, like if you were to provide anybody with insight or advice on where to start for an accomplishment like that, which, it sounds like, that kind of fit with your last answer. So that's what, I think that's tremendously impressive.
Yeah, and I'll speak to that. And honestly, the work that I'm doing right now is very much aligned, because that I tried to lose weight in the past. I had a lot of weight to lose, but why was this time successful because I didn't do any diet or any special thing.
Right.
There was no medical intervention or anything like that or medication, which I totally have no judgment on. I mean, it was even before Ozempic and all that. But my biggest question to myself was like, why was I able this time? And I had gone through, significant self-awareness work in terms of coaching for myself. And that's building that trust and belief and understanding my strengths and how I go about navigating. And it was leadership training that did it for me, but it was building that foundation that I could do it. And then on top of that, I went and invested into experts and I had my accountability group. I just kept going. It took me 10 months to lose 90 pounds, which is probably
It's
faster than
really fast. Yeah.
I was all in. And that doesn't mean, the holidays came and I had some flexibility, but there was no doubt. Like I just persevered and I wanted that better life for myself. I wanted to feel better. I wanted to do better. And I felt better. Therefore, that fueled me. And I want that for others. I want that so much
Yeah.
because I didn't realize how bad I felt until I felt good. So
Yeah.
that's been kind of my mandate. I'm like, wow, this is how I'm
Huge.
supposed to feel. I found out I was gluten intolerant in that process, and there's so many things.
Yeah.
I thought I had limitations, like I thought I couldn't run because, my ankle was a bad one. But all of this worked itself out through exercise and eating healthy and taking care of myself and always kind of reminding myself why I was doing this and where that came from. And
Yeah.
now,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, I think that you touched on some valuable insight that everyone's unique, right? Your journey is unique. There's no one size fits all,
Yep.
and a lot of it is finding experts and having experts around you that can help you. So, for you and yourself and how you help your clients, how can everyone kind of get a hold of you and follow your content and keep up to date with you?
Yeah, so I've made it my mission to help. So I am very active on both LinkedIn, so you can look me up as Marilyn Whitty, and also Instagram. It's Vitality with Marilyn on Instagram. So I try and put content out there very frequently. I have a newsletter on LinkedIn. And in terms of the services, so there's two groups that I work with. So I'm very much connected in the HR community. So I do guest speaking workshops within organizations, so that you can contact me directly. But I like have that space, which is vitalityhrconsulting.com. I can send the information. And then really the work that I do one-on-one with leaders is like you could tell throughout this. It's the same framework. It's just a slightly different angle. So vitalitywithmarilyn.com is where my coaching and the fitness program. So I do collaborate with other experts in the field because I'm an HR professional and I will never pretend to be like kinesiologist like my colleague or dietitian or anything like that. So that's my goal too, is I'm gathering experts so that I deliver the best support for my clients. And now I'm growing kind of that community and a membership
That's awesome.
program is opening up very soon where people won't have to wonder where to go. They will be connected with experts and connected with information when they need it. So that I'm building that space right now. So if you have any
Nice.
interest and no matter what, like the information I'm all about sharing the information out there so that people can, if it just triggers a little bit of hope or a little bit of like um instill any motivation in them in trying to better themselves, then that will have been worth it. And of course, if people want to reach out to me, I'm quite accessible on those platforms as well.
That's awesome. Thank you, Marilyn. This is amazing. We'll post everything to our listeners so they can easily get in touch with you. I think all of us could use it. So thank you so much for all your insight today, for your passion, for your commitment to people, and for sharing your work with us.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great. Thank you.
Thanks,
We'll do it
Marilyn.
again soon.
Bye.